So there I was, staring at my laptop screen, watching my entire marriage collapse into a Gmail thread I wasn't supposed to see. The subject line? Tonight. The last message? Meet me at the usual spot. Can't wait to finally have you all to myself. Signed with a heart emoji. From someone saved in her contacts as D. Here's the thing about being Barrett Mitchell, 36-year-old insurance claims specialist living the suburban Illinois dream. I thought I had it all figured out. Nice house in Schaumburg with the HOA-approved beige siding, a wife who looked good in the annual neighborhood Christmas card photo, a Lexus SUV with heated seats, and a golf membership I barely used because I was too busy building our future. 9 years of marriage to Natalie, the girl I met at a Northwestern alumni mixer who laughed at my jokes and made me feel like I was actually interesting instead of just stable. No kids, because she always said we needed to wait for the right time. First it was, let's get the house first. Then it was, I need to establish my career. Then it was, maybe after we do that European trip. 9 years of maybes and soon and let's revisit this conversation next year. Meanwhile, her sister Kelly already had 3 kids, and every family gathering turned into a passive-aggressive interrogation about when we were going to finally give Margaret and Robert grandchildren. I'd learned to tune it out. Natalie always had my back during those moments, squeezing my hand under the table and changing the subject. My supportive wife, my partner, my best friend. Yeah, about that. The email had been sitting there when I opened my laptop Thursday morning. I wasn't snooping, I swear to God I wasn't. I'd been using Natalie's MacBook because mine was updating, and when I opened Chrome, there it was. Her Gmail, still logged in. And that email thread, sitting right there in her inbox like a lit match in a room full of gasoline. My first instinct? Close it. Pretend I didn't see it. Go back to my boring, stable, predictable life, where my biggest stress was whether Jenkins from accounting was going to approve my PTO request for Thanksgiving. But here's what stopped me. That phrase. Finally have you all to myself. Finally. Like there had been obstacles. Like there had been waiting. Like there had been planning. My hand was shaking when I clicked on the thread, opened it, started scrolling, and that's when I heard her footsteps on the stairs. Natalie was coming down for her morning coffee, that overpriced oat milk latte she made every single day with the espresso machine her brother Devin bought us because you guys need to live a little. I had maybe 3 seconds before she walked into the kitchen and saw me sitting there, her laptop open, her secrets on full display. In that moment, I made the smartest decision of my entire life. I didn't confront her, didn't scream, didn't slam the laptop shut in a panic. I opened a new tab, pulled up my Gmail, and started casually scrolling through my own boring work emails like nothing had happened. When Natalie walked into the kitchen, I watched her freeze in the doorway. Her eyes went straight to the laptop. I could see her brain calculating, processing, wondering. That split second of pure terror that flickered across her face before she managed to paste on a smile. "Morning, babe," I said, not looking up. "You want your usual Starbucks run, or should I just make you something here?" The relief that washed over her was almost insulting, like she dodged a bullet she didn't even know was loaded. "Starbucks is fine," she said, her voice just a half-pitch too high, too cheerful. "I have that early meeting anyway." She walked over, too casual, too relaxed, and reached for the laptop. "Let me just close this out," she murmured, and I watched her fingers fly across the keyboard, closing tabs, clearing history, logging out with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "No worries," I said, grabbing my keys. "I'll grab you that vanilla sweet cream cold brew thing you like, the one that costs more than my first car payment." She laughed. Actually laughed. Like everything was normal. Like she wasn't actively hiding an affair. Like I was still the clueless husband who would never, ever suspect that his transparent, honest wife was living a double life. "You're the best," she said, kissing my cheek. And there it was. The moment I realized that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a carefully constructed lie. See? Here's what Natalie always preached. Transparency in relationships. She was the one who insisted we share phone passwords, who left her phone face up on the counter, who told me every detail about that time her ex-coworker Brad sent her a LinkedIn message saying, "We should grab coffee sometime," and how she immediately shut it down because I'm married and I love my husband. She made such a big deal about being that couple, the honest couple, the couple who communicated, the couple who didn't have secrets. And I, like an absolute idiot, believed her. I grabbed my jacket and headed toward the garage, playing the part of Barrett Mitchell, loyal suburban husband, one more time. But as I backed out of the driveway, watching Natalie wave from the kitchen window with that perfect smile, I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to blow up, wasn't going to confront, wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing I knew. I was going to do something much, much worse. I was going to document everything. Because here's what 9 years in insurance claims teaches you. Evidence is everything. Facts matter. Documentation wins. And if you're patient enough to build an airtight case, you can dismantle someone's entire world without them ever seeing it coming. Natalie thought she was safe, thought she'd dodged disaster, thought her boring, stable husband would never in a million years suspect that something was wrong. That was her first mistake. Her second? Underestimating what a boring insurance guy can do when he finally decides to investigate a claim. And baby, this was going to be one hell of an investigation. The thing about living with someone who's cheating on you is that once you know, you can't unknow. Every single interaction becomes a performance. Every "I love you" becomes a question mark. Every smile feels like a lie wrapped in expensive dental work. Friday morning, I woke up and did what any self-respecting insurance investigator would do. I started building my case. First stop, our phone bill. Verizon has this beautiful feature where you can see call logs and text message timestamps for everyone on your family plan. Not the content, just the metadata. And let me tell you, metadata doesn't lie. Natalie had been texting one number, same area code, Chicago-based, an average of 247 times per day for the past 6 months. 247. That's more than she texted her own mother, more than she texted her best friend Amy, more than she texted me, and I was literally sleeping in the same bed. The calls? Always during her lunch breaks. Always lasting exactly 43 to 58 minutes, like clockwork. I cross-referenced the timestamps with her work calendar that she insisted we share for transparency. Every single one of those marathon phone calls happened during blocks she'd labeled client strategy session or marketing team sync. Impressive dedication to the lie, honestly. Saturday, Natalie announced we were going to her parents' house for dinner. "Mom's making pot roast," she said, like this was supposed to excite me. Margaret Sullivan's pot roast had the texture of a hockey puck and the flavor of cardboard, but I'd spent 9 years pretending it was really good, because that's what you do when you're trying to be the good son-in-law. The Sullivan family dinners were always the same choreographed performance. Margaret would ask pointed questions about grandchildren. Robert would talk about his latest commercial real estate deal. Devin, Natalie's older brother, would humble brag about his investment banking bonuses, while his wife Simone smiled and nodded like a bobblehead. And I would sit there, playing my role as Barrett the boring, Barrett the stable, Barrett the guy who would never be as successful as Devin. But this time I walked in with different eyes. We arrived at their Hinsdale McMansion, because of course they lived in Hinsdale, and Margaret immediately pulled Natalie into a hug. "Sweetheart, you look radiant." Radiant. That's what a fair glow looks like to someone who knows, apparently. Robert clapped me on the shoulder with his usual condescending grip. "Barrett, how's the insurance game? Still pushing papers?" "Someone's got to do it," I said with my most affable smile. "Not all of us can be real estate moguls." Devin was already on his second scotch, holding court in the living room about some merger his firm was brokering. $18 million deal, he announced to no one in particular. Closed it in 3 weeks. "That's incredible, Dev," Natalie said, and I watched the way she looked at her brother. Pride. Admiration. The same way she used to look at me approximately never. We sat down for dinner, and Margaret launched into her usual script. "So," she said, passing the nuclear-grade pot roast. "Kelly's pregnant again. Number 4. Can you believe it?" The table went silent. This was the setup. This was always the setup. 4 kids, Margaret continued, her eyes landing on Natalie and me like heat-seeking missiles. "Robert and I are just so blessed with grandchildren. Well, most of them anyway." There it was, the subtle dig wrapped in a smile. Natalie squeezed my hand under the table, our signal that we were in this together. "Mom, we've talked about this." I know, Margaret said, waving her hand dismissively. "You're focusing on your careers. I just think, well, you're not getting any younger, sweetheart. Your eggs don't last forever." Jesus Christ, we were doing the egg timer conversation again. "Margaret," I said, keeping my voice level, "we appreciate your concern, but Natalie and I will figure out our own timeline. Oh, I know Barrett would be a wonderful father, Margaret continued, completely ignoring me. It's just, you know how family is important to us. Legacy. Continuation of the Sullivan name. The Sullivan name. Because God forbid I wanted to pass on the Mitchell name. No, any theoretical future children would obviously be Sullivans first, Mitchell's as an afterthought. Devin jumped in, because of course he did. Hey, no pressure, you two. But Mom's got a point. Simone and I are thinking about starting soon, too. Gotta keep up with Kelly, right? He laughed, but his eyes were doing that thing where he was measuring me, comparing, finding me lacking. We'll see, Natalie said, her voice tight. And that's when I noticed it. The way she looked at her phone. The way her thumb hovered over the screen, like she was itching to check it. The way her leg bounced under the table. A nervous habit she only did when she was anxious. She was thinking about him. About D. Right here, at her parents' dinner table, while her mother lectured us about legacy and eggs, my wife was mentally somewhere else, with someone else. The rest of dinner was a blur of passive-aggressive comments and forced laughter. Robert told a story about outbidding some developer on a property in Naperville. Devin mentioned his country club was getting exclusive, and maybe I should apply. Margaret brought out a dessert that looked homemade but was definitely from Whole Foods. And through it all, Natalie checked her phone 7 times. I counted. When we finally left, she was quiet in the car, distant. You okay? I asked, playing the concerned husband. Just tired, she said. Work's been crazy. Work. Right. Sunday, I decided to go old school. I checked our credit card statements, the ones that auto-downloaded to our shared financial app that Natalie had insisted we use for budget transparency. Charges at the Langham Hotel in downtown Chicago. 3 different dates. Each one a Thursday afternoon, her supposed late meeting days. Charges at Gibson's Steakhouse. RPM Italian. Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse. Places we'd never been together because they were too expensive for a random Tuesday. But apparently not too expensive for my wife and her mystery man. And then I found the receipt that made my blood actually boil. Tiffany & Co. purchase date, August 23rd. Amount $3,047. I didn't get a Tiffany's gift for our 9th anniversary. I got a card. A nice card, handwritten, but still just a card. But D got $3,047 worth of Tiffany's. On our credit card. She'd bought her affair partner a gift, with my money. And then came home and kissed me and said, let's just do something low-key this year for our anniversary, save money for the future. The future. Our imaginary future that she was already planning to blow up. Monday morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I called in sick to work. Told my boss Jenkins I had food poisoning from that Thai place on Golf Road. Then I followed Natalie. I know. It's not my finest moment. But I needed to see it. Needed confirmation that I wasn't crazy. That this wasn't some elaborate misunderstanding. She left the house at 9:47 a.m. like always. Drove toward her office in downtown Chicago, like always. But then, at the Roosevelt Road exit, she turned. She didn't go to work. She drove to a condo building in the South Loop, one of those new glass towers with the doorman and valet parking, and she walked in like she owned the place. I sat in my car across the street for 2 hours. 2 hours. Watching the entrance like some discount private investigator in a bad cable movie. When she finally came out, her hair was different. Messier. Her makeup was smudged. She was smiling at her phone. And I realized this wasn't a new thing. This was routine. This was her life. The wife I thought I knew? She didn't exist. Maybe she never had. That night she came home at her normal time. Kissed my cheek. Asked about my day. Same old boring stuff, I said. You? Exhausting client meeting, she said. I need a glass of wine. We sat on the couch. Watched some Netflix show she'd picked. And I pretended everything was fine. Because here's what I'd realized. Confronting her now would be satisfying for maybe 5 minutes. But what I wanted, what I needed, was to make sure that when this all came crashing down, she wouldn't be able to spin it. Wouldn't be able to make me the bad guy. Wouldn't be able to play victim to her family, who already thought I was barely good enough for her anyway. I needed to wait for the perfect moment, and I knew exactly when that would be. The Sullivans did Thanksgiving weird. Instead of November, they celebrated in late September, some family tradition from when Robert's dad was alive, and insisted on beating the crowds. September 26th, Thursday. 2.5 weeks away. The entire family would be there. Natalie's aunts, uncles, cousins, all 23 members of the Sullivan clan gathered in that Hinsdale McMansion to celebrate their superiority and eat Margaret's dry turkey. And I was going to make sure they all had front row seats when Natalie's perfect life fell apart. Tuesday morning, I woke up with a mission. If I was going to blow up Natalie's world at Thanksgiving, I needed to know exactly who I was dealing with. D wasn't just a letter anymore. He was a person. A real person who was sleeping with my wife, eating at restaurants I couldn't afford, and receiving Tiffany's gifts on my dime. Time to figure out who this guy really was. I started with the phone number, the one Natalie had been texting 247 times a day. I ran it through a reverse lookup site, one of those sketchy ones that insurance investigators definitely don't use for personal matters. The name that popped up made me actually laugh out loud in my home office. Devin Sullivan. Her brother's number. For a split second, I thought maybe I'd gotten it wrong. Maybe the affair was some kind of sick family secret I didn't want to know about. But then I kept digging, and the pieces started falling into place in the most infuriating way possible. The number wasn't Devin's personal cell. It was a second phone. A burner, basically. Registered under Devin's name, but with a billing address I didn't recognize. That same South Loop condo building I'd followed Natalie to. Devin was covering for someone, helping them, enabling them. And suddenly, every single family dinner made sense. Every condescending comment. Every time Devin had looked at me like I was some kind of charity case his sister had married. He knew. He'd known the whole time. Probably helped set the whole thing up. I needed more information. So I did what any desperate husband would do in 2024. I became a digital stalker. Natalie's Instagram was public because she was building her personal brand as a marketing coordinator. I scrolled through her posts. The carefully curated photos of our life together, the sunset shots from our trip to Door County last summer, the brunch plates at all those trendy West Loop spots. But then I noticed something in the tagged photos, ones she hadn't posted herself, photos from her work events and girls' nights. And in the background of 3 different photos over the span of 4 months was the same guy, tall, dark hair with that perfectly styled fade, wearing suits that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Always just out of frame, like he was trying to be invisible but wasn't quite succeeding. I zoomed in on one photo, screenshot, enhanced it using some free photo editor, and there, on his wrist, was a watch I recognized. A Cartier Santos, rose gold, large model. I knew that watch because I'd researched it once, after Natalie mentioned that Devin's friend who works in finance had one and how successful people invest in quality pieces. $15,000 retail. Plus tax. I went back through our credit card statements with fresh eyes, found the Tiffany's purchase details through the online portal, called the store, pretended to be following up on my anniversary gift purchase, and gave them the transaction number. The sales associate was lovely, very helpful, told me that the item purchased was a Cartier Santos de Cartier watch in rose gold. Bingo. My wife had bought her affair partner a $15,000 watch. Actually, scratch that. I had bought her affair partner a $15,000 watch because it was on our joint credit card that I paid off every month with my boring insurance job income. Wednesday, I took a long lunch and drove to the South Loop, parked across from that glass tower condo building, and I waited. At 12:47 p.m., I watched a guy walk out. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit, and, I couldn't make this up if I tried, wearing that exact Cartier watch, catching the September sunlight as he checked his phone. I recognized him immediately from the Instagram photos, but here's the thing that made my blood run cold. I recognized him from somewhere else too. This was Dylan Ashford. I'd seen his face before, in business journals, in Chicago Magazine's 40 Under 40 feature. He was a managing director at the same investment banking firm where Devin worked. My brother-in-law's colleague, probably his friend. Natalie wasn't just having an affair. She was having an affair with someone in Devin's professional circle. Someone Devin had probably introduced her to. Someone who was everything I wasn't. Rich, polished, successful, connected. And Devin had facilitated the whole thing. Probably got Dylan the condo. Set up the burner phone under his name. Covered for both of them. That's when the full picture crystallized. This wasn't just about Natalie wanting something different. This was about the entire Sullivan family thinking I wasn't good enough. That I'd never be good enough. That Natalie had settled. And they were all just waiting for her to figure it out and upgrade. I drove back to work and spent the rest of the afternoon doing what I do best, investigating. Dylan Ashford, 39 years old, managing director at Sullivan and Marston Investment Partners. Wait, Sullivan and Marston. Sullivan, as in Robert Sullivan, my father-in-law's firm, the company Devin worked for. The family business I'd never been invited to join because I wasn't really a finance guy. This was all in the family, literally. I pulled Dylan's LinkedIn profile, looked at his connections, his posts about grinding and winning and surrounding yourself with excellence, his engagement announcement from 3 years ago to someone named Cassandra. Wait, engagement announcement? I went deeper, found Cassandra Nguyen's profile, her relationship status, engaged to Dylan Ashford. My wife's affair partner was engaged to someone who had no idea her fiancé was spending Thursday afternoons at his South Loop love nest with a married woman. Oh, this was getting better by the second. Thursday, exactly 2 weeks before the Sullivan Thanksgiving, I formulated my plan. Not a revenge fantasy, an actual methodical insurance investigator level plan. See, here's what people don't understand about insurance work. It's not just about denying claims or crunching numbers. It's about finding discrepancies, following paper trails, connecting dots that people thought they'd hidden. And right now, I had access to something very, very interesting. Remember how Robert Sullivan ran that commercial real estate development company? And how Devin worked at the family investment firm? Well, guess what crosses my desk sometimes at work? Insurance claims for commercial properties, liability coverage disputes, financial documentation for large developments. And guess whose company had filed 3 separate claims in the past 18 months that I personally had flagged as requiring additional review due to inconsistencies in reported valuations? Sullivan Property Development Group. I'd never pursued it because, well, conflict of interest. But now I wasn't bound by family loyalty anymore, was I? I started pulling files, public records, tax documents, building permits, insurance claims that had been settled, but maybe shouldn't have been. And what I found was a beautiful web of financial manipulation that would make any investigator salivate. Robert Sullivan had been inflating property values for insurance purposes while underreporting for tax purposes. Classic fraud. Small enough to fly under the radar. Big enough to be absolutely illegal if anyone bothered to look closely. And Devin? Devin's investment firm had been providing the independent valuations that made it all look legitimate. Dylan Ashford's signature was on half of them. They were all in on it together. A neat little family business of semi-legal financial maneuvering that probably netted them millions in tax breaks and insurance payouts. And I had every single document, every signature, every falsified report. I made copies, organized them, cross-referenced everything, built a case that would make any prosecutor weep with joy. But I wasn't going to the authorities. Not yet. First, I was going to Thanksgiving. Friday, I went shopping, bought a new laptop, a cheap one from Best Buy, made sure it had an HDMI port, tested it with the Sullivan's living room TV because I'd volunteered to help set up their new streaming service the weekend before. Robert had been so grateful. "You're always so helpful, Barrett. So reliable." Reliable, sure. Let's go with that. I also prepared a little slideshow. Nothing fancy. Just a collection of screenshots, email threads, credit card statements, and time-stamped photos. Set to auto-advance every 15 seconds. Professional, clean, devastating. And a separate folder, this one for later, containing every piece of financial fraud documentation I'd compiled, with a nice cover letter addressed to both the IRS and the Illinois Department of Insurance. Saturday, Natalie asked why I seemed so cheerful. "Just excited for Thanksgiving," I said. "Big family gathering. Your mom's turkey, the whole thing." She smiled, kissed me. "You're such a good sport about my family stuff." "Hey," I said, pulling her close. "They're my family too." That night, she went to take a shower, left her phone on the nightstand, and I did something I'd been planning for a week. I airdropped myself every photo and message from her affair that I could find. Screenshots of Dylan's messages, photos they'd taken together, everything. Then I deleted the airdrop notifications from her phone. Sunday, 1 week before Thanksgiving, I went to church. I'm not particularly religious, but I needed to look like the good guy, the faithful husband, the man who'd done everything right. Father Murphy asked how Natalie and I were doing. "Better than ever," I said. "Really grateful for what we have." He smiled. "That's wonderful to hear, Barrett. You two are a great example of a strong marriage." I almost laughed. Monday, I started counting down. 6 days until the Sullivan family Thanksgiving. 6 days until 23 people, Margaret, Robert, Devin, Kelly with her kids, all the aunts and uncles and cousins who'd spent 9 years making me feel like Natalie's participation trophy, would see exactly what their perfect, ambitious, successful family had been hiding. Natalie noticed I'd been quiet. "You okay?" she asked Tuesday night. "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking about us, about the future." "Oh, what about it?" "Just wondering what it's going to look like," I said. "Things are going to change soon. I can feel it." She smiled. Thought I was finally ready to talk about kids. I let her think that. Thursday, September 26th. Sullivan family Thanksgiving. The day I'd been waiting for. I woke up that morning feeling calmer than I had in 2 weeks. Natalie was already up, stressing about what to wear. "Do you think the blue dress or the black one?" she asked, holding them up. "Blue," I said. "Definitely the blue. You should look your best today." She beamed, kissed me. "You're being so sweet lately. I love it." I smiled back. "Just want to make sure today is memorable." We arrived at the Hinsdale house at 2 p.m. sharp. The driveway was already packed with cars, Kelly's minivan, Devin's BMW, various SUVs belonging to aunts and uncles whose names I could never keep straight. The whole Sullivan clan assembled for their weird September Thanksgiving tradition. Margaret answered the door wearing an apron that said, "Blessed and Thankful." She pulled Natalie into a hug, then gave me the usual air kiss near my cheek. "Barrett, so glad you could make it." Like I had a choice. Inside, the house was chaos. Kids running around, the smell of turkey and sweet potatoes. Robert holding court in the living room with his brothers, all of them drinking scotch and talking about interest rates. Devin was there too, laughing at something his father said, looking smug in his Ralph Lauren sweater. "Barrett!" Devin called out when he saw me. "There's the insurance man. Come grab a drink." I walked over, shook hands with Robert's brothers, Thomas and Michael, both real estate guys, and accepted the scotch Devin poured. "So," Devin said, that condescending tone in his voice, "still processing claims? Still living that 9-to-5 dream?" "Someone's got to keep the lights on," I said easily. "Not all of us can play with other people's money for a living." Robert laughed. "Barrett's got a point, Dev. Honest work, respectable." Respectable. The Sullivan family code for not impressive enough. I nursed my drink and watched Natalie across the room. She was talking to Kelly, who was showing off her baby bump, kid number 4, due in March. Natalie laughed at something Kelly said, but her eyes kept flicking to her phone, checking messages. Probably from Dylan, who was spending his Thanksgiving with Cassandra and her family, completely oblivious to the bomb that was about to drop on his life too. Dinner was set for 4 p.m. Margaret had the dining room table extended to its full length, fitting all 23 of us. The good china was out, the crystal glasses, the whole production. I'd volunteered to help with the tech stuff, setting up Robert's new sound system so they could play background music during dinner. What they didn't know was that I'd already connected my laptop to their living room TV via HDMI, hidden it behind the entertainment center, synced it to my phone via Bluetooth. "Dinner's ready," Margaret announced, and we all filed into the dining room. I made sure to sit where I had a clear view of the TV in the adjoining living room. Most people could see it from their seats. Perfect. Robert stood at the head of the table, raising his glass. "I want to thank everyone for coming to our annual September Thanksgiving. As many of you know, this tradition started with my father, and it means everything to Margaret and me that we can continue it with all of you. Family is everything. Legacy is everything, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you." Everyone raised their glasses. "Cheers," Margaret smiled. "Before we eat, I thought we could go around and each say what we're thankful for this year. Kelly, why don't you start?" Oh, God. The gratitude circle. I'd forgotten about this part. Kelly went first, talking about her kids and her husband and the new baby coming. Then her husband, Brad. Then Uncle Thomas and Aunt Patricia, each person sharing their carefully curated blessings. When it got to Devin, he stood up slightly. "I'm thankful for family, for success, for the opportunities we create for each other." His eyes landed on me for just a second. A flash of something. Superiority? Pity? Then it was Natalie's turn. She squeezed my hand under the table. "I'm thankful for my amazing family, for my husband, who's always so patient with me, and for the future we're building together." The future we're building. Right. Then it was my turn. 23 pairs of eyes on me. The boring son-in-law, the reliable guy, the one who'd never quite measured up. I stood up slowly. I'm thankful, I said, for truth, for clarity, for the ability to see things as they really are, not as we pretend them to be. A few confused looks. Margaret smiled uncertainly. And I'm especially thankful, I continued, pulling out my phone, for modern technology, for digital footprints, for the way nothing really stays hidden anymore. Natalie's hand tightened on mine. Barrett, what are you? I pressed the button on my phone. The TV in the living room flickered to life. Everyone turned to look. The first image appeared on screen, a text message screenshot, Natalie's number at the top. Can't wait to see you today. I told Barrett I have a late meeting. We have the whole afternoon. The room went silent. Barrett, Robert said slowly. What is this? Just some gratitude, I said calmly. Keep watching. The slideshow advanced. Another screenshot. This one. Dylan, last night was incredible. I can't believe we pulled off the Langham again without Barrett suspecting anything. Natalie's face went white. She tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back. Margaret gasped. Natalie? The next slide. A photo of Natalie and Dylan at Gibson's Steakhouse, her hand on his chest, both of them laughing. Date stamp, August 15th. Then another, the Tiffany's receipt. Item, Cartier Santos watch. Amount, $3,147. Purchased by Natalie Mitchell. Wait, Kelly said, her voice shaking. Who is that guy? The next image answered her question. Dylan Ashford's LinkedIn profile photo. Clean, professional, with his title clearly visible. Managing Director, Sullivan and Marston Investment Partners. Devin stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Turn that off, right now. Oh, we're just getting started, I said. The next slide, a screenshot of the burner phone account, registered under Devin's name. Billing address, the South Loop condo. Devin helped set it all up, I explained conversationally, like I was presenting a work report. The phone, the condo, made it real easy for Natalie and Dylan to carry on their affair for, what was it, honey? 6 months? 7? Natalie was crying now. Please, Barrett, please stop. Stop? I smiled. But we haven't gotten to the best part yet. The next image, Dylan and Cassandra's engagement announcement, her smiling face, her ring. The caption, can't wait to marry my best friend. Fun fact, I said, looking at Margaret directly. Dylan's engaged, has been for 3 years. So not only was your daughter having an affair with her brother's colleague, she was having an affair with someone else's fiancé. Really living those Sullivan family values. Margaret looked like she might faint. Robert's face had turned purple, but I wasn't done. The slideshow advanced again. This time, documents, financial records, property valuations, insurance claims. And since we're all here being thankful and honest, I continued, I should probably mention that I've also discovered some interesting discrepancies in Sullivan Property Development's insurance claims. See, Robert, when you inflate property values for insurance purposes, but deflate them for tax purposes, that's called fraud. And when Devin's firm provides the falsified valuations, that's conspiracy. Devin lunged toward me, but Uncle Thomas grabbed him. You piece of... Careful, I said. We're at Thanksgiving. Family event. Robert's voice was deadly quiet. Barrett, those documents are confidential. Not anymore, I said cheerfully. See, I've already sent copies to the IRS, the Illinois Department of Insurance, and, oh yeah, the SEC. They should receive them Monday morning. Figured I'd give you the weekend to get your affairs in order. Or, call your lawyers. The room exploded. Kelly was crying. Margaret was yelling at Natalie. Devin was being restrained by 2 uncles. Aunt Patricia was frantically trying to cover her kids' ears. Robert was on his feet, face red, looking like he might have a heart attack. And Natalie? Natalie just sat there, mascara running, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Who are you? She whispered. I leaned down, spoke quietly just for her. I'm the boring insurance guy you married. The reliable one. The one who pays attention to details. The one you should never have underestimated. I straightened up, addressed the room one last time. Anyway, I'll let you all get back to your dinner. Margaret, the turkey smells great. Really outdid yourself this year. I grabbed my jacket from the coat rack. Barrett! Robert roared. You walk out that door, you're done. You hear me? You're done with this family. I turned back, smiled. Robert, I was done with this family the moment I realized you were all covering for my wife's affair while making me feel like I wasn't good enough to be here in the first place. So, yeah, I'm good. I walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. Oh, and Natalie, I already filed for divorce. Papers should be served to you Monday morning, same time the federal agencies get their packages. Our lawyer, well, my lawyer now, said the case is pretty clear-cut. Adultery, financial deception, using marital funds for an affair. You'll probably want to get your own representation. Her eyes widened. You can't, we can still what? Work it out? I laughed. Baby, I stopped working on us the moment you decided to work on Dylan instead. Have a blessed Thanksgiving, everyone. I walked out into the crisp September evening, got in my car, and drove away from that house for the last time. Behind me, I could hear the shouting, the crying, the absolute chaos. And for the first time in 2 weeks, I felt something close to peace. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new apartment in Lincoln Park. Nothing fancy, but it's mine, and nobody's using my credit card to buy gifts for their affair partner when I get a text from an unknown number. This is Cassandra, Dylan's ex-fiancée. Can we talk? Turns out, Cassandra had seen my Thanksgiving presentation too. Devin, in a panic, had called Dylan immediately after I left. Dylan had confessed everything to Cassandra that same night. She'd called off the engagement by Friday morning. Smart woman. We met for coffee at a place in Wicker Park. She was nice, pretty, way too good for Dylan Ashford. I wanted to thank you, she said, stirring her latte. I know that sounds weird, but I would have married him. I would have had no idea. Trust me, I said. I get it. I was about 2 years away from finally convincing Natalie to have kids. Can you imagine? Bringing children into that lie? She shuddered. I heard about the divorce. How'd it go? Clean, I said. Turns out when you have documented evidence of adultery and financial deception, things move pretty fast. She tried to fight for half the house, but her lawyer took one look at the receipts, literally, and advised her to take the settlement I offered. Which was? She keeps her car. I keep the house and my retirement accounts. No alimony because Illinois is great like that when there's clear fault. We split the furniture and I took the grill because I'll be damned if she's using my Weber at Dylan's place. Cassandra laughed. What about the Sullivans? The fraud stuff? That was the fun part. Robert's company is under federal investigation. Devin lost his position at the firm. They forced him to resign to avoid the scandal. Margaret stopped speaking to Natalie entirely, which is hilarious because she spent 9 years pressuring us about grandchildren. And Kelly? Kelly actually reached out to apologize, said she had no idea and that she always thought I was too good for Natalie anyway. Wow. Yeah. Family dynamics are weird when the golden child gets exposed. We talked for another hour, exchanged numbers, started texting occasionally. Nothing romantic. We were both too damaged for that. But it was nice having someone who understood what it felt like to be the collateral damage in someone else's selfish decisions. 3 months after that coffee, Devin's firm settled with the SEC for $4.7 million. Robert's company filed for bankruptcy. The Sullivan family empire, built on decades of corner-cutting and superiority complexes, collapsed like a house of cards made of overvalued properties. Natalie moved in with Dylan. His South Loop condo, the one registered under Devin's name. Poetic, really. She'd finally gotten what she wanted. The successful finance guy, the fancy address, the life that didn't involve a boring insurance specialist. Last I heard, Dylan got demoted at work after the scandal. Turns out, having your affair exposed at Thanksgiving dinner and being connected to a federal fraud investigation isn't great for your career. He's still in finance, but at a smaller firm, making probably half what he used to. Natalie had to find a new job too. Her old company restructured her position right around the time the divorce became public record. Corporate America doesn't love messy personal scandals. As for me, I got promoted, senior claims investigator, bigger office, better pay. My boss Jenkins said my attention to detail and commitment to uncovering truth made me perfect for the role. I didn't tell him I'd learned those skills exposing my wife's affair. I'm dating again, nothing serious yet, but there's this woman, Amanda, who works at the coffee shop near my apartment. She laughs at my jokes. She thinks insurance work is actually pretty interesting when I explain it. And when I told her I was divorced, she didn't ask a million questions, just said their loss and moved on. It's nice, simple, honest. The other day I ran into Margaret at Whole Foods. She saw me, froze, then quickly turned her cart around and went down a different aisle. I let her go. Not worth the confrontation. But I noticed she was alone. No Robert, no Devin, no Natalie helping her shop like they used to. The Sullivan family isn't what it used to be. Funny how exposing one lie can unravel an entire dynasty. People ask me if I regret how I handled it, if I should have just confronted Natalie privately, if blowing up Thanksgiving was too much. And here's what I tell them. Natalie had 6 months to come clean. 6 months where she could have sat me down, been honest, and ended things like an adult. Instead, she lied, spent my money, used our shared life as a cover story while building a different future with someone else. The Sullivans had 9 years to treat me like actual family. 9 years where they could have respected me, included me, made me feel like I belonged. Instead, they made me the punchline, the guy who wasn't quite good enough, the participation trophy their daughter settled for. So, no. I don't regret the Thanksgiving ambush. Sometimes the only way to deal with people who've underestimated you is to show them exactly what you're capable of when you stop playing nice. Would I do it again? Absolutely. But with better wine and maybe some appetizers. Margaret's pot roast was really dry, and if you're going to detonate a family's entire existence, you should at least have decent food while you do it. I'm Barrett Mitchell. I'm 36 years old. I work in insurance. I grill a mean steak. And I learned the most valuable lesson of my life from my failed marriage. Never underestimate the boring guy. Because we're the ones who actually read the fine print, document everything, and know exactly how to file a claim when things go wrong. And baby, Natalie's whole life was one big fraudulent claim waiting to be denied. Case closed.